4:45 a.m., the time Annabel decided the world could go on without her. The hotel bathroom smelled of salt and failure. Her body sank beneath the lukewarm water, hair fanning like black silk. 7 years of research stolen. Her mentor, Dr. Solomon Charles, published her work under his name and smiled for the cameras while she drowned in silence. Air became pain. Pain became peace. Just let go. The door crashed open. 2 hands, strong, ruthless, dragged her from the water. Annabel hit the marble floor hard, coughing up the ocean. Fingers pressed her back once, twice, forcing breath she didn't want. "Stop," she gasped. "Let me die." "Shut up." The voice cut through her like ice. When her blurred vision steadied, she saw him, a tall man in a black suit, dripping wet, his expression carved from steel. No pity, no panic, only calculation. "Who are you?" He didn't answer. He spoke in rapid Korean into his phone, tone precise, commanding. Moments later, the door opened again. 2 men entered, armed, broad-shouldered, silent. One bore a scar that split his jaw. These were not hotel security. Annabel backed away on shaking elbows. "You can't." The stranger knelt until his cologne, sharp and cold, like winter steel, filled her lungs. "You tried to kill yourself, Dr. Obi." Her breath stilled. "How does he know my name?" "That makes you unpredictable," he continued softly. "And in my world, unpredictable means dangerous." His eyes swept over her face, dark and unreadable. "Which means you no longer have a choice. Get her up." She kicked, twisted. The scar-jaw man lifted her like a doll, while the other wrapped a towel around her trembling shoulders. "Don't touch me!" "Scream," the man in black said, voice bored. "This hotel's been paid off. No one's coming." Tears blurred her vision. "I don't have money." "I don't want your money." He checked his watch. 2 minutes. "Get her dressed." "This is kidnapping." He met her eyes, and smiled without warmth. "Yes." 5 minutes later, Annabel sat in a black SUV that smelled of leather and rain. Clothes, her exact size, clung to her skin. Her wrists were tied. Outside, Busan streets streaked past in silver light. Beside her, the man scrolled through his phone, his soaked hair slicked back, the sharp angle of his jaw gleaming beneath the streetlights. "Where are you taking me?" she whispered. "Somewhere you can't hurt yourself." "I want to go back." He turned, voice calm, almost amused. "To what?" "The hotel room you booked under a fake name? The one with the suicide note in the drawer." Annabel froze. "I know everything about you," he said quietly. "Dr. Annabel Obi, 29. Nigerian medical researcher. 3 years in Korea. Fellowship ended 6 months ago. Mentor stole your work. Visa expires in 48 hours. $213 left. Mother in Lagos. 3 missed calls. 17 Google searches on painless death. 1 bathtub." "Stop it," she cried. "Why?" His gaze pinned her. "Does the truth hurt?" The SUV rolled through a set of iron gates and stopped before a stone mansion overlooking the sea. Guard towers, cameras, silence thick as a vow. Annabel's voice trembled. "No, I'm not going in there." The scarred man grabbed her arm. She fought, bare feet sliding on wet stone. Then the stranger turned, eyes glinting under the floodlights. "My name is Han Min-jae." He stepped closer until her reflection quivered in his pupils. "From this moment, you breathe because I allow it. You live because I decide you're worth keeping alive." His hand gripped her chin, thumb tracing her jaw like a signature. "You belong to me now. Welcome to Moonlit Stories, where moonlight meets myth. Love timeless tales? Then hit like, subscribe. Please leave a comment for us, as we love to get feedbacks from you and join the circle. Every story begins with you. The mansion was too quiet. The air smelled of polished wood and power. Annabel's bare feet slipped against the marble as the scarred man dragged her inside. Chandeliers gleamed above, their reflections dancing across glass walls and expensive art. The kind of place people entered in handcuffs and never left. "Let me go!" Her voice cracked. Han Min-jae didn't slow down. He walked ahead, every step calm, unhurried, terrifying. "Bring her to the medical wing," he ordered in Korean. Her stomach twisted. Medical wing. She fought, twisting in the guard's hold. What are you going to do to me? Min-jae stopped at the end of a corridor. His wetsuit clung to his body. A small cut on his cheek still bled. He turned his head slightly. Keep you alive, Dr. Obi. I'll kill myself the first chance I get. He stepped closer, lowering his voice until it brushed her ear. No, you won't. Because from this moment, every breath you take belongs to me. Annabel froze. The words felt like chains wrapping around her lungs. They pushed through double doors into a suite that looked stolen from two worlds, half luxury, half hospital. Ivory curtains fluttered against the cold sea breeze. A hospital bed stood between velvet chairs. For stand monitors, silk sheets. A prison disguised as paradise. The guards dropped her onto the bed. Annabel scrambled backward, eyes darting for an escape. One door. One reinforced window. No hope. Let me out! She shouted, pounding the door. You can't keep me here. The door opened. A woman entered. A doctor, maybe 50, kind eyes hidden behind thin glasses. Hello, Dr. Obi. I'm Dr. Cha. I just need to examine you. I don't need an exam. I need. Leave us. Min-jae's voice interrupted from the doorway. Dr. Cha vanished without protest. Annabel pressed herself against the wall, her towel slipping. Stay away from me. He moved closer, silent, precise, until only a breath separated them. You're not going to hurt yourself tonight. You don't know that. I do, he said simply, pulling a chair to the foot of the bed. Because I'll be sitting right here, watching you. Her chest tightened. You're insane. Probably. He leaned back, gaze locked on hers. But I'm also the only thing standing between you and death. So get used to seeing me, Dr. Obi. Until I'm convinced you won't try again. He smiled faintly, razor sharp and devastating. You're not leaving my sight. Her knees gave out. She slid to the floor, tears mixing with water still dripping from her hair. Why? His eyes softened just enough to hurt. Because you're too valuable to waste. When he looked away to answer his phone, she caught one Korean word, sumin. His entire face changed. Warmth vanished, jaw locked. He stood, voice low. Get some rest, Annabel. Tomorrow, we talk about why you're really here. The lock clicked behind him. And in the silence, Annabel realized her story hadn't ended in that bathtub. It had just begun. Annabel woke to the hum of silence and the weight of eyes on her. The room was softer now, sunlight crawling through the blinds, gilding the marble in gold. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she saw him. Han Min-jae sat in the same chair he'd promised to occupy all night. His jacket was off, shirt sleeves rolled up, eyes unreadable. He hadn't moved. You watched me sleep, she whispered. I told you I would. His tone was calm, almost conversational, but something in it sent a chill through her veins. Annabel pulled the sheets tighter. You're insane. He tilted his head. Maybe. But you're alive. That counts for something. She looked away. You don't know me. I know enough. He stood, walked to the window, and drew the curtains wide. Morning flooded the room. Too bright. Too clean for the kind of darkness that lived between them. I had your background checked. He said it like an apology disguised as control. Lagos. University of Abuja. Top of her class. You came to Busan 3 years ago on a medical research fellowship. And then your mentor, Dr. Solomon Charles, stole everything. Her breath hitched. You had no right. I make it my business to know the people I save, he interrupted. Especially the ones who try to die in my city. My city. The words scraped against her chest. You sound like you own Busan. A faint smile touched his lips. Maybe I do. Annabel's heart twisted. He was dangerous, this man who spoke softly yet ruled entire streets. But beneath the command was something else. Weariness. Control worn thin. What do you want from me? She asked finally. His eyes met hers, sharp, burning. The truth. About what you were working on before Solomon Charles stole it. Her pulse quickened. You saved me to interrogate me? I saved you because you were drowning. His voice lowered, almost tender. But now that you're breathing, we deal with why you wanted to disappear in the first place. She pushed off the bed, unsteady but defiant. I don't owe you anything. He took a slow step forward. You owe me your life. Annabel flinched. For the first time, Something flickered behind his composure, guilt, maybe regret. Eat, he said finally, turning away. Breakfast is at 8. My men will escort you to my office. And Annabel. She froze at the door. Try not to run, he said softly. I don't like chasing people I've decided to keep alive. When he left, she stood trembling in the silence, her reflection fractured in the glass. Outside, Busan glimmered, beautiful, distant, and impossible to escape. The scent of roasted coffee and honey filled the corridor. Annabel's escort, a silent guard in a dark suit, led her down a hall lined with oil paintings and security cameras. Everything gleamed, the marble, the silver door handles, the kind of wealth that whispered danger. When she entered the dining room, Han Min-jae was already there. He sat at the head of a long glass table, a newspaper beside his untouched breakfast. A man built for control, precise movements, sharp eyes, and silence heavy enough to command obedience. Annabel's throat tightened. Is this breakfast or interrogation? He folded the paper neatly. That depends on how honest you plan to be. She crossed her arms. I didn't ask to be here. And yet, he said, gesturing to the chair opposite him, you're alive because I wanted you here. Sit. Annabel hesitated, then sat, chin raised in defiance. The porcelain clinked as she poured herself tea, her fingers trembling despite her effort to appear calm. Han Min-jae watched every movement, his gaze assessing, dissecting. You take your tea with honey, he said. She froze. How would you know that? Because I pay attention, he replied simply. You hummed while waiting for the kettle last night. The melody, Nigerian, yes? Something your mother used to sing. The words landed like a blow. You were watching me even then? He didn't flinch. You're a guest in my house, Dr. Obi. I watch everyone who enters it, especially the ones who try to end their lives in my city. I'm not your responsibility, she whispered. Then why are you still here? His question hung between them like smoke. Annabel had no answer. She hated him. This man who treated her like a possession, who rescued her only to cage her, but she couldn't ignore the strange safety that wrapped around his presence. Tell me about Solomon Charles, Min-jae said finally. Her fingers tightened around her teacup. He stole my research, years of immunotherapy work, then published it under his name and erased me from existence. Min-jae leaned back. And you let him? Her voice rose. You don't understand. He destroyed my career, my visa, my life. He met her fury with unnerving calm. Then why drown yourself instead of fighting back? Tears burned behind her eyes. Because fighting alone feels like dying slower. For a brief second, something flickered in his expression. Empathy or memory, but it vanished as quickly as it came. You're not alone anymore, he said quietly. Annabel blinked. What? His eyes softened just enough to disarm her. You'll get your research back. But you'll do it my way. Before she could ask what that meant, he stood, voice resuming its deadly calm. Finish your tea. You start work tomorrow. Work? On what? He turned toward the window, Busan's sunlight outlining his silhouette like a blade. On rebuilding the thing that ruined your life. The next morning, the mansion felt alive. Footsteps echoed down polished corridors. Men in suits spoke in hushed Korean. The scent of gun oil and sea wind filled the air. Annabel followed Dr. Cha through a restricted section, her stomach tight with unease. The walls here were colder, less luxury, more command center. Keypads, surveillance screens, steel doors. You'll be working here, Dr. Cha said softly, leading her into a spotless white lab. Mr. Han wants you to resume your research. My research? Annabel froze. He doesn't even understand it. Dr. Cha gave a faint, knowing smile. He understands power, and knowledge is power. Before Annabel could respond, the door slid open behind her. Han Min-jae entered, dressed in black again, crisp and untouchable. The room seemed to bend toward him. Good morning, Dr. Obi. His tone was polite, almost warm. Do you feel rested? Imprisoned, actually. He ignored that, stepping closer. This lab is yours now. Every resource you lacked before, money, equipment, protection, you have here. Annabel's pulse quickened. And what do you expect in return? Loyalty. Her laugh was sharp. You kidnapped me, chained me to your compound, and now you want loyalty. He smiled faintly. You mistake fear for chains. I could have left you to die in that bathtub. Instead, I chose to keep you alive. That doesn't make you noble, she snapped. It makes you controlling. His gaze darkened, not anger, but something quieter. Maybe. But control keeps people alive in my world. He walked past her to the glass wall that overlooked the ocean. You built something that could heal the body faster than it breaks. Solomon Charles turned it into a weapon for profit. I can help you take it back and punish him for it. Annabelle's heart hammered. Why? Why do you care? He turned slowly, eyes softer now. Because I've been betrayed too. The silence that followed was thick, heavy, human. When he spoke again, his voice was almost gentle. I don't need you to trust me yet, but I need you to work. What you create here could change everything for both of us. Annabelle stared at the rows of gleaming lab equipment. For the first time in weeks, she felt the ache of purpose flicker beneath her fear. She reached for a test tube. If I do this, she said quietly, it's on my terms. Min-jae smiled slightly. You'll find my terms rarely bend, but I admire your attempt. He turned to leave, his reflection rippling in the glass like a shadow she couldn't escape. As the door closed, Annabelle whispered under her breath, What have you pulled me into? Outside, waves slammed against the Busan cliffs, and deep in her chest, something began to stir, a dangerous, impossible hope. Days blurred into a rhythm she didn't choose. Annabelle woke to soft knocks, silent guards, and breakfast trays she barely touched. After that came the lab, her new cage of glass and light. At first, she refused to speak to him. Han Min-jae would enter each morning at precisely 9, stand by the glass wall overlooking the ocean and say nothing. He'd watch her work like an artist studying brushstrokes, eyes cool and unreadable. By the third morning, silence broke before she could stop herself. You don't strike me as a man who understands medicine, she muttered. He looked up from his tablet. And you don't strike me as a woman who gives up easily. Their eyes met through the reflection in the glass, hers full of guarded anger, his faintly amused. I'm not your project, she said. I never said you were, he replied evenly. But maybe we're both experiments now. Annabelle turned back to her microscope, pretending she didn't feel his gaze tracing every small movement. 4 hours, she lost herself in work. Calculations, cultures, fragments of the research that once defined her life. Yet beneath the hum of machines, she could feel it. His presence, steady and unyielding, like a heartbeat echoing through the walls. At noon, he approached her table, placing a sealed folder beside her notes. What's this? Proof, he said. Solomon Charles sold your formula to a weapons subsidiary in Japan. My sources intercepted it. Annabelle's hands trembled as she opened the file. Documents, signatures, everything she needed to destroy the man who had destroyed her. She looked up sharply. Why are you showing me this? Because I don't believe in saving people who want to die, Min-jae said quietly. I believe in giving them a reason to live. The words hung between them, dangerous and human. For a moment, she saw him differently, not the monster who dragged her from death, but the man carrying scars of his own. The loneliness in his eyes wasn't power, it was punishment. She set the folder down, voice softer. You think revenge will fix me? No, he said, stepping closer. But it might remind you that you still matter. His hand brushed her wrist, not a command this time, just contact. Warm, steady, real. Annabelle didn't pull away. Her pulse betrayed her, racing beneath his touch. Careful, Han Min-jae, she whispered. You're starting to sound human. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that could melt glass and freeze blood all at once. Don't tell anyone. When he left the lab, Annabelle pressed a hand to her chest, shaken by how her heartbeat followed the echo of his footsteps. Outside, waves crashed against the Busan cliffs, relentless and alive, like the man she swore she'd never need. Night in the compound felt heavier than silence. The waves outside Busan's cliffs crashed like drums of warning. From her room, Annabelle could hear faint voices in the courtyard, guards changing shifts, engines starting, footsteps echoing against marble. She couldn't sleep. The folder on her desk burned in her mind, proof of betrayal, revenge waiting to be unleashed. She should have felt power. Instead, she felt watched. Her reflection in the window startled her, Tired eyes, sleek bun damp from the shower, bruises fading along her wrists. But there was something else there too, a pulse of life she hadn't seen in weeks. The door creaked open. Han Min-jae stepped in, no jacket this time, sleeves rolled to his elbows. His usually perfect composure seemed fractured. "You're awake," she said, voice low. "So are you," he replied. "You haven't eaten all day." "I wasn't hungry." He studied her for a long moment, then crossed the room and set down a tray. Jollof rice, rich, red, fragrant, impossible to ignore. Her chest tightened. "How do you even know?" He gave a faint smile. "I make it my business to know what my people need." "I'm not your people." His eyes flickered. "You could be." She stared at the food, appetite warring with pride. "Why are you doing this, Min-jae?" "Because when I found you in that bathtub," he said quietly, "you looked like someone I used to know." Annabel froze. "Who?" He leaned against the wall, gaze distant. "My wife. She died years ago. I was supposed to protect her. I failed." The words landed like broken glass. His voice, stripped of arrogance, was raw enough to make her heartbeat stutter. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, she saw the man beneath the title. The one who carried ghosts instead of gold. "Eat," he said finally, softer now. "You'll need your strength." "For what?" "For the storm coming," he murmured. Men like Solomon Charles don't stay quiet when their secrets start unraveling. Annabel took a bite, the taste of home making her eyes sting. He watched her in silence, something unspoken between them. Sorrow, respect, danger. When she finally met his gaze, his expression had changed again, cold, guarded, safe. The walls were back up. "Get some sleep," he said, turning toward the door. "Min-jae." He paused. "Thank you." His eyes softened briefly before the mask slid back into place. "Don't thank me yet, Annabel. The real war hasn't started." The door clicked shut. Alone in her room, Annabel stared at the untouched half of the meal and realized she was no longer sure who the enemy truly was, the man who ruined her life, or the one who had quietly rebuilt it piece by piece. Morning came in gold and quiet. Annabel stood in the lab, staring through the glass wall at the horizon. The sea glittered, but something inside her felt heavy. Han Min-jae hadn't shown up yet. For a man who ran his world like a clock, his absence unsettled her. Dr. Cha entered with a clipboard. "Mr. Han's in a meeting," she said in Korean accented English. "He asked that you continue working." Annabel nodded, but curiosity chewed at her calm. "A meeting with who?" Dr. Cha hesitated. "Old enemies. New problems." Then she left. Hours passed. Annabel worked until numbers blurred into ghosts. Her hands shook from exhaustion and worry. Just as she leaned back, the door hissed open. Han Min-jae stepped in. But this time he wasn't alone. Two men followed, both armed, both watching her. One of them had that cold soldier's stillness, the kind that came from a lifetime of killing. The other, young, confident, cruelly smiling, was the opposite. Min-jae's voice was calm, but sharp as glass. "This is Kang Dae-ho, my right hand. And his brother, Jean, who forgets when to keep quiet." "Pretty scientist," Jean said, smiling at her like a weapon. "The boss has good taste." Annabel stiffened. Han Min-jae didn't look at Jean, he just said, quietly, "Apologize." Jean laughed. "Relax, Hyung. He didn't finish. Min-jae's fist cracked across his jaw before the word, joking, left his lips. The sound echoed through the sterile lab. "Out," Min-jae ordered, voice low and deadly. Both men left without another word. Annabel's heart pounded. "You didn't have to." "I did," he interrupted, wiping blood from his knuckles. "No one disrespects you under my roof." Her breath caught. "I don't need protection." He turned to her slowly, eyes burning with something between anger and care. "You think this is protection? This is survival. My enemies already know who you are, Annabel. They know you're alive. They know you're with me." The words hit her like cold rain. "What did you do?" "I sent a message," he said, "that anyone who touches you touches me." Annabel froze. The realization twisted through her. "You've made me a target." "No," Min-jae said softly, stepping closer. "I've made you untouchable." He was too close now, close enough for her to smell the faint trace of smoke and rain on his skin. close enough to see the quiet tremor in his jaw. She wanted to hate him. Instead, her voice came out like a whisper. Why does it feel like both? For a moment, the mask cracked. Because power always costs something. Then he left, and the room seemed colder for it. Annabel stood in the empty lab, the ocean outside flashing white against the glass. And for the first time, she realized that the man who had saved her life might also be the one who would destroy it. That night, Busan's sky bled red from the reflection of the harbor lights. Annabel couldn't sleep. The mansion felt too still, like the air itself was holding its breath. Every corridor seemed to hum with restrained violence. She wandered down to the lab, the one place that made sense. The rhythmic beep of machines, the soft glow of monitors, it reminded her who she used to be before all this madness. When the door slid open, she nearly screamed. Han Min-jae stood there, unbuttoned shirt, tie undone, a ghost of exhaustion in his eyes. You should be asleep, he said. So should you, she replied softly. But you're here. He stepped inside, the door closing behind him. You've been working too much. She laughed bitterly. Work keeps me from remembering I'm a prisoner. His jaw tightened. You're not a prisoner. You're protected. Is that what you call this? She shot back, voice trembling. Locked doors, armed guards, no freedom to leave? He took a slow breath, crossing the space between them. Freedom is an illusion, Annabel. Even outside these walls, the world wanted to break you. At least here, no one can touch you. Except you. The words slipped out before she could stop them. His eyes darkened. Silence pulsed between them. Sharp, electric, dangerous. Do you regret that I saved you? He asked quietly. I don't know, she whispered. You saved my life, but you also stole it. For a moment, the mask fell away. Then take it back. She frowned. What? He stepped closer, voice rougher now. Fight me. Yell. Hate me. But don't fade away again. Her throat tightened. You don't get to decide how I survive. No, he said, softer now, eyes almost pleading. I just refuse to watch you die again. The confession hit harder than any threat could. He turned away before she could answer, leaning against the glass wall overlooking the night sea. Sumin is moving, he said. My sources say she's buying information about you. About your mother. Annabel's blood ran cold. My mother? She's in Lagos. She's safe. Not anymore, he said quietly. Someone leaked your connection to me. Her breath stuttered. So you really did make me a target. He turned back, eyes fierce. Then let me be the shield. Annabel's voice broke. I don't want to be another war you're trying to win. You already are. He left before she could speak again. The door slid shut, and Annabel sank to the floor, trembling. Outside, the sea crashed against the cliffs. Inside, she realized with terrifying clarity, Han Min-jae wasn't just her savior or her captor. He was becoming the only person she couldn't live without. Thunder rolled across Busan's coast, low and angry. Rain hit the windows of the mansion like bullets. The sea was wild, white foam thrashing against the cliffs below. Inside, tension mirrored the storm. Annabel stood at the window of her room, arms wrapped around herself. Her reflection stared back, haunted, changing. She no longer looked like the woman who had tried to drown. She looked like someone who had learned to breathe inside the fire. A soft knock. The door opened. Han Min-jae entered without his usual armor. No suit, no guards. Just a dark sweater and eyes that had lost sleep. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. I could say the same to you, he replied, stepping inside. You haven't left this room since last night. She turned away. Maybe I'm learning from the best. He smiled faintly. You're angry with me. I'm terrified of you. That silenced him. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter. Good. Fear keeps people alive. Fear also kills them, she said. I've lived my whole life scared, a failure, of men like Solomon, of never being enough. And now you. Her words hit him harder than she knew. He crossed the room slowly, stopping only when she backed against the window. Don't compare me to him. Her breath caught. Then stop acting like him. Lightning flared between them, reflected in the glass. Their faces, so close, looked like two sides of the same wound. Min-jae's voice dropped. Do you know what the difference is between Solomon and me? Enlighten me. He wanted to use you. I want to protect you. Her throat tightened. And if I don't want your protection? His eyes softened. Then I'll protect you anyway. The storm raged outside. For a moment, the world shrank to two people and the thunder between them. You think this is saving me, she said. But you're just pulling me into your chaos. His hand lifted, hovering near her face, but he stopped himself, the control almost painful. Maybe I am, he murmured. But if I'm going to hell, Annabel, I'm not going alone. Her eyes glistened. You're insane. He smiled faintly. You said that before. They stood in silence, breath mingling with lightning. Then a phone buzzed. Min-jae's expression changed instantly, cold, dangerous again. He glanced at the screen, jaw tightening. Sumin just moved. Annabel's blood chilled. What does that mean? It means the war has begun. He turned for the door. Get ready. You're coming with me. Before she could speak, he was gone, leaving only the echo of thunder and the smell of rain. Annabel closed her eyes, whispering into the storm. What are you dragging me into now, Han Min-jae? The black convoy waited in the courtyard like shadows carved from steel. Rain still fell in sheets, blurring the world into streaks of silver and thunder. Han Min-jae's men moved with silent precision, checking weapons, radios, earpieces. Every one of them bowed slightly when he passed. Annabel hesitated under the archway, her pulse loud in her ears. This was the first time she had seen the outside since her kidnapping. Freedom and fear looked the same in the rain. Min-jae turned, umbrella in hand, rainwater running down his temple. Stay close to me, he said quietly. Or what? He met her eyes. Or you won't make it to the car. The words weren't a threat, they were truth. She nodded once and stepped beside him. Their reflections shimmered in the puddles, side by side, prisoner and protector. They entered the lead SUV. The engine purred to life. The city of Busan stretched ahead, wet, glistening, dangerous. Annabel stared out the window as they sped through neon streets. Where are we going? To meet someone who once worked for Sumin, he said. He's ready to talk. And if it's a trap? Min-jae's gaze stayed on the road. Then you'll see why people fear my name. Silence filled the car. The rain softened, replaced by the whisper of tires on asphalt. For a moment, Busan looked almost peaceful, the kind of peace that always came before blood. The SUV turned down a narrow dockside lane, lights reflecting off the wet pavement. Stay in the car, Min-jae ordered, stepping out. Guards flanked him immediately, scanning the foggy harbor. Annabel's fingers curled around the door handle. Her heart told her to obey. Her curiosity refused. She opened the door and followed. The air smelled of salt and diesel. Min-jae stood ahead, speaking with a trembling man in a soaked coat. You're late, Min-jae said in Korean, voice sharp as thunder. The man stammered. Sumin, she's building something new. Incheon docks. Chemical division. She's after. A shot cracked the air. The man's words died as he collapsed forward, blood pooling under the rain. Down! Min-jae shouted, pushing Annabel behind a crate just as bullets sliced through the fog. Gunfire echoed across the pier. His men returned fire instantly, moving with lethal rhythm. Rain and smoke blurred everything. Annabel pressed against the crate, heart racing, watching Min-jae through the haze. He was terrifying, calm, ruthless, his movements precise and deadly. Yet every time he turned, his eyes found her, making sure she was still breathing. The fight ended as quickly as it began. Silence fell, broken only by waves slapping the dock. Min-jae walked back, gun still in hand, rain dripping from his sleeve. Now you understand, he said quietly. Annabel's voice shook. Understand what? He looked down at her, cold, beautiful, unbreakable. That loving me will get you killed. The world smelled of gunpowder and rain. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, swallowed by the thunder over Busan's harbor. Han Min-jae's men worked fast, dragging bodies, wiping prints, erasing evidence. The pier looked empty again, except for the blood that refused to wash away. Annabel stood frozen beside a shipping crate, her clothes soaked, her pulse refusing to slow. You shouldn't have left the car, Min-jae said quietly behind her. She turned. His shirt clung to him, black with rain and streaked with blood, some of it his. A shallow cut traced his jaw, red against pale skin. "I heard a gunshot," she said, voice trembling. "I thought you were dead." His mouth curved faintly. "Not tonight." He walked past her to the water's edge, looking out at the sea as lightning fractured the horizon. For the first time, he seemed tired, like the weight of his empire had settled across his shoulders. "Why do you do it?" she asked. "You could disappear. Leave all this behind." He gave a small, humorless laugh. "Because monsters don't retire, Annabel. We just trade one battlefield for another." She stepped closer, her voice low. "You're not a monster." He turned then, slowly, eyes unreadable. "That's because you haven't seen everything I've done." The words sent a shiver through her. He noticed. His tone softened. "Come here." Before she could think, he took her wrist, pulling her hand toward the cut on his jaw. "Press," he said. "It'll stop the bleeding." Her fingers trembled against his skin. The contact was electric. His warmth, her breath, the pulse between them. "Why do you keep saving me?" she whispered. He didn't blink. "Because every time I look at you, I remember that some things are still worth saving." Rain blurred her vision. She wasn't sure if it was the weather or tears. "Han Min-jae." He lifted her hand, pressed her palm to his chest where his heartbeat thudded steady beneath the soaked fabric. "This life isn't safe for you. But if you stay with me, you'll never face it alone." Lightning cracked the sky. His men turned away discreetly, pretending not to see. Annabel swallowed the fear in her throat. "You're asking me to choose between freedom and survival." "No," he said softly. "I'm asking you to trust me for one more day." Their eyes locked, the sea roaring beneath them. For the first time since she'd met him, Annabel didn't feel like his captive. She felt like the calm inside his chaos, and that terrified her more than the storm. The storm passed before dawn. Busan's skyline shimmered under the soft gray of morning, and the sea had finally grown quiet. Inside Han Min-jae's mansion, everything was still, too still, like the world was holding its breath. Annabel sat by the fireplace in the living room, wrapped in one of his black coats. Her hands trembled around a cup of tea. The faint scent of gun oil still clung to the air. Min-jae entered without a word. He'd showered, the blood and rain were gone, but exhaustion clung to him like a shadow. His tie hung loose, and his eyes looked darker than usual, like the night hadn't left him yet. "You're hurt," Annabel said softly. "I've been worse." He sat across from her, silence stretching between them. The fire flickered, painting his face in amber light. "Last night," she began, "you said monsters don't retire." He looked up, faint amusement in his tired eyes. "I did." She hesitated, then whispered, "Then what are you doing trying to save me?" Min-jae leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice low. "Maybe I'm trying to remember what it felt like to be human." The honesty in his tone startled her. She met his gaze. "And what do you see when you look at me?" He didn't answer immediately. His eyes softened, the mask slipping again. A woman who should have drowned but didn't. Someone too stubborn to die, too brave to break. Her breath caught. "That's not strength, Min-jae. That's desperation." "Maybe," he murmured. "But it's beautiful." The words lingered between them like the smoke curling above the fire. Annabel placed her cup down carefully. "You make it hard to hate you, you know." He smiled faintly. "Good. Hate is exhausting." She almost laughed, almost. But her voice broke instead. "And what happens when I stop hating you?" He stood, crossed the space between them. "Then I have a problem." Her pulse raced. "Why?" "Because then I'll stop pretending I don't want you." He was close now, close enough for her to feel the heat of him, smell the faint trace of cedar and rain. His hand lifted slowly, hesitating near her cheek before he drew back. "I can't do this," he said finally, voice tight. "You make me weak, and weakness gets people killed." Annabel stood, her eyes glistening. "Maybe it's not weakness. Maybe it's the only thing keeping you alive." He stared at her for a long moment, as if memorizing her face. Then he turned toward the door. "Pack a bag," he said quietly. "We leave for Seoul at dusk." "Why?" she whispered. "Because someone just put a price on your head." The sun slipped behind gray clouds as the convoy moved north toward Seoul. Annabel sat beside Han Min-jae in the back seat, the hum of the engine filling the silence. Outside, the world blurred, rain-washed mountains, endless roads, the illusion of freedom sliding by too fast to hold. Neither spoke for hours. The air between them was thick with things they couldn't say. Finally, Annabel broke the silence. Who put a price on my head? Min-jae didn't look at her. Sumin. Her stomach tightened. You're sure? She sent a bounty photo to underground networks this morning. 50 million won. Dead or alive? Annabel exhaled shakily. Why now? Because you're getting close, he said, tone flat. She knows I won't let her reach you, so she's forcing my hand. Annabel turned toward him. You sound calm. I learned long ago that panic doesn't save lives. She studied his reflection in the window, jaw clenched, eyes sharp, posture still as steel. For all his control, something beneath it trembled. Does it ever get easier? She asked softly. What? Living with blood on your hands. He finally looked at her. No. You just learned to breathe through it. His honesty disarmed her. She wanted to hate him for what he'd done, for what he was, but every time he spoke like this, she saw the man beneath the monster. Han Min-jae, she murmured, what would you be if you weren't this? He turned back to the window. Irrelevant. The word hit her like a bruise. You don't mean that. I do. His tone softened. People like me don't get to live quiet lives. The day I stop fighting is the day I die. Annabel swallowed hard. Then maybe I can teach you how to live before that happens. He turned slowly, eyes meeting hers. For the first time, something like hope flickered there, and it terrified them both. The convoy slowed suddenly. A voice crackled over the comms. Roadblock ahead. Min-jae's posture stiffened. Keep moving, he ordered. Gunfire shattered the next second. The first SUV exploded into flames. Screams erupted through the radio. Min-jae grabbed Annabel, pushing her down as glass shattered. Stay low. The car swerved, bullets tearing through the night. His men fired back, chaos erupting on the highway. Annabel's heart thundered. Min-jae! I'm here! His voice was sharp, steady. He drew his weapon, returning fire through the broken window. Another explosion rocked the road ahead. Who are they? She cried. Bounty hunters, he growled. And they just made their last mistake. The vehicle screeched to a halt, smoke rising all around. Han Min-jae stepped out into the chaos, gun in hand, the storm inside him finally unleashed. The world was burning. Flames devoured the first SUV, painting the highway in gold and red. The smell of gasoline mixed with rain as smoke rolled across the asphalt. Annabel clung to the seat, heart slamming against her ribs. Outside, Han Min-jae was a blur of motion, his coat whipping in the wind, gun steady in his hand, eyes colder than steel. He moved like he'd been born in chaos. 3 figures emerged through the smoke, bounty hunters in dark masks, rifles raised. Down, he shouted. Annabel ducked as bullets shattered what was left of the windshield. Sparks flew. One of Min-jae's men fell, silent. Another returned fire from behind the SUV. Min-jae charged forward. His movements were brutal and precise. 2 shots, 2 bodies down. The third man lunged from the shadows, knife flashing. Annabel screamed. Min-jae turned just in time, the blade grazing his arm before his own bullet ended the fight. The man dropped lifelessly into the mud. The echo of gunfire faded, replaced by the hiss of burning metal and the heavy sound of rain. Annabel stumbled from the car, shaking. Her bare feet splashed through puddles of blood and water. Min-jae, she called, her voice breaking. He was already walking toward her, blood soaking through his sleeve. She reached him, eyes wide. You're hurt. It's nothing. She grabbed his arm anyway. Stop lying to me. For once, he didn't argue. He just looked at her. The scientist, the survivor, the woman who'd refused to die. Lightning flared. His voice was low. This is the world I live in, Annabel. Violence isn't a choice. It's the language I was born into. Then unlearn it, she whispered. He stared at her, and something inside him fractured, like a man hearing his own soul speak for the first time. Get back in the car, he said quietly. She shook her head. Not until you let someone clean that wound. He smiled faintly, pained but amused. You're stubborn. You're bleeding. I've had worse. Not while I'm here. For a second, something warm flickered in his eyes, something that looked dangerously like love. He reached out, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. His hand lingered, trembling slightly. "You shouldn't have followed me out here. And you shouldn't keep thinking I'm someone you can save," she said softly. "Maybe we both need each other for the same reason, to remember we're still human." Rain poured harder. He didn't reply. He just stepped closer, lowering his forehead to hers, both of them standing amid smoke and wreckage like survivors of the same storm. And in that silence, she realized something terrifying. She wasn't afraid anymore. The drive to Seoul was silent. The night bled into dawn, a pale wash of gray spilling over the mountains. Annabel sat beside Han Min-jae, the smell of smoke still clinging to their clothes. His men had cleared the road and changed cars twice to lose any tails, but danger hung over them like fog. Min-jae's left arm was bandaged now, white against the black of his shirt. He'd refused painkillers, refused rest. His focus stayed on the road ahead, jaw locked, eyes sharp. Annabel watched him quietly. The tension between them was no longer just fear. It was something deeper, heavier, alive. "Why didn't you let them drive?" she asked softly. He didn't look at her. "Because if another ambush comes, I'll be the first to die." Her throat tightened. "Don't joke about that." "I wasn't joking." The words hit like a bruise. Silence fell again, thick with things unsaid. By the time they reached the outskirts of Seoul, the city was waking. Vendors rolling up steel shutters, streetlights flickering out one by one. The SUV turned down an alley lined with old brick walls and stopped in front of a nondescript building. "This is one of my safe houses," Min-jae said, stepping out. "No one knows this address." Annabel followed him inside. The interior was surprisingly simple: warm lights, clean furniture, a faint smell of coffee and disinfectant. It felt almost human. "You should rest," he said, motioning to the small couch. "I can't," she replied. "Every time I close my eyes, I see the fire." He hesitated, then removed his jacket, tossing it over a chair. "Sit." When she didn't move, he sighed, crossed the room, and gently guided her down by the shoulders. His touch was firm but careful, as if afraid she'd break. "Breathe," he murmured. "You're safe now." Annabel looked up at him. "Am I? Or is this just another cage?" His jaw tensed. "You really think I'd hurt you?" "I don't know what to think," she whispered. "Every time you save me, you look like you're punishing yourself for it." Min-jae froze. The truth in her words sank deep. He sank to one knee beside her, eyes searching hers. "Maybe I am," he said quietly, "because every time I touch you, I forget what I've done to deserve you alive." Her breath trembled. "Han Min-jae." He didn't speak. He just reached up, brushing his thumb across her cheek, wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. The air between them burned with something wordless, half confession, half forgiveness. And for a moment, the world outside, the bullets, the bounty, the blood, didn't exist. Only the sound of two broken hearts learning how to beat in the same room. The safe house was quiet. Too quiet. Outside, Seoul's morning traffic murmured like a distant tide, but inside, time moved slower. Every heartbeat, every glance felt amplified. Annabel sat by the window, watching sunlight creep across the floor. Her hair was tied neatly in her sleek bun, her fingers tracing the rim of a half-empty teacup. Every part of her screamed calm, but her pulse betrayed her. Behind her, Han Min-jae moved like a shadow. He changed into a black t-shirt and gray sweatpants, casual for once, but it didn't make him any less dangerous. His presence filled the room. "You didn't sleep," he said. "Neither did you." He gave a faint smile. "You talk to yourself when you're scared." Her eyes flicked up, startled. "You were watching me? I was guarding you." "Same thing," she said quietly. He leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. "You think I enjoy this? Keeping you locked away like some secret?" "You tell me," she replied. "Do you?" His silence was answer enough. Annabel stood, walking toward him. The distance between them felt dangerous, magnetic. "You could have left me to die that night," she said softly. "Why didn't you?" His eyes darkened. "Because I didn't want to watch another person drown when I could have pulled them out." "Another person?" He looked away. "My wife." The confession cracked the air open. Annabel froze, heartbeat stuttering. She drowned? She died, he said, voice low. In a car I should have been driving. I was late, 15 minutes late, and I've been trying to make up for it ever since. The rawness in his tone stripped every wall from her. Slowly, she reached out, fingertips brushing his arm. You can't carry that forever. He looked down at her hand, trembling slightly against his skin. Maybe not, he whispered, but it's all I have left to hold on to. For a long moment, neither moved. The light between them shimmered gold, their reflections mirrored in the window glass. Two haunted souls framed by Seoul's skyline. You shouldn't be here, he murmured. Every time I look at you, I want to protect you. But the closer you get, the more dangerous it becomes. Annabelle's eyes glistened. And what if I've already decided the danger is worth it? His breath caught. The air between them thickened, slow and electric. Han Min-jae reached for her then, hesitant, trembling real. His hand rested against her neck, thumb tracing her jaw like a promise he didn't know how to keep. Annabelle, he whispered. She leaned in, her voice barely audible. Then stopped fighting it. Their lips met, slow, inevitable, like the final step over a line neither could ever uncross. Morning light spilled across the room like mercy after war. Annabelle woke first, the faint hum of the city drifting through the half-open blinds. Han Min-jae lay beside her on the couch, one arm slung loosely across his chest, his expression softer than she'd ever seen it. The quiet between them was fragile, like the world had paused to let them breathe. For a moment, she let herself forget who he was, the man whose name made grown men disappear. Here, he looked almost human, almost safe. She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his face. His eyes opened instantly, sharp, alert. Instinct never slept. Good morning, she whispered. He blinked once, tension melting when he saw her. You should be asleep. So should you, she said. But you don't look like the kind of man who ever really sleeps. He gave a faint, tired smile. You learn quickly. Annabelle sat up, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. What happens now? Now, he said, rising and pulling on his shirt. We disappear for a while. Change locations. So means people will search Busan, not Seoul at least for now. So we keep running. We keep living. The way he said it, steady, certain, made her chest tighten. She watched him adjust the cuff of his shirt, the scar on his arm catching the light. Why do you keep doing this? She asked quietly. Fighting, killing, protecting people who'll never know your name? He paused, hand still at his sleeve. Because power is the only language people listen to. That's not true, she said. You listen. Min-jae turned to her. Only to you. The words landed heavy, honest, dangerous. He crossed the room, stopping just short of touching her. You make me want something I can't have. What's that? Peace. Her breath caught. Then maybe that's what we fight for now. His gaze softened, but before he could answer, his phone buzzed on the table. The caller ID froze him. He answered in Korean, voice low. Annabelle didn't understand every word, but she heard one clearly, mother. When he hung up, his face was unreadable. What happened? She asked. They found her, he said. Yours. Annabelle stood so fast the blanket fell away. Where? Jeju Island, he replied. Under Sumin's control. Her heart dropped. We have to go. We will, he said, voice darkening. But if Sumin wants to use your mother as bait, he stepped closer, eyes burning. Then this time, she's the one walking into my trap. Annabelle stared at him, half in fear, half in awe, and realized something terrifying. If Han Min-jae ever lost her, he would burn the world to ashes just to bring her back. By nightfall, Seoul shimmered like glass, bright, cold, unforgiving. From the safe house balcony, Annabelle could see the city lights flicker beneath low clouds, each one a heartbeat pulsing in the dark. But her mind wasn't in Seoul. It was on Jeju Island, with her mother. Behind her, Han Min-jae packed weapons and files with the calm precision of a surgeon. His every motion carried purpose. When do we leave? She asked. Tomorrow before dawn, he said, slipping a pistol into its holster. Jeju's airstrip will be clear by then. Annabelle stepped closer, her voice trembling. You've done this before, haven't you? Rescue missions. Kill orders. He glanced at her. Too many times. Does it ever stop feeling wrong? He paused, looking down at the gun in his hand. The day it stops feeling wrong is the day I become what they say I am. She watched him in silence, the glow of the city catching in his eyes. He looked powerful, yes, but also human, cracked around the edges in ways he didn't show the world. Why risk it all for me? She asked. He met her gaze. Because Sumin took something from me once, he said quietly. And this time, she doesn't get to win. Annabelle's throat tightened. You mean your wife? He nodded once. She was everything Sumin couldn't destroy, until she found a way. I can't undo that, but I can stop it from happening again. He turned away, shoulders tense. You remind me of her sometimes. The fire, the way you don't bow to fear. But you're not her. Annabelle's voice softened. Then who am I? He faced her again. You're the reason I stopped wanting to die. The confession shattered something inside her. Tears blurred her vision, but before she could speak, he reached out, brushing them away with his thumb. I can't promise I'll come back, he said, but I promise your mother will. No, she whispered, gripping his wrist. You don't get to die for me. His smile was faint, weary. I already did. The night I pulled you from that bathtub. The room went silent except for the sound of the city below, traffic, life, everything normal people still had. Then Min-jae lowered his forehead to hers, eyes closing. If this is the end, at least let me face it knowing you forgave me. I did, she breathed. The moment you chose to save me. He exhaled softly, his hand resting against her cheek like a prayer. Then whatever happens next, he murmured, we face it together. Outside, thunder rolled again over Seoul, the sound of a storm that was about to begin. Jeju's dawn broke crimson. The air was thick with salt and tension as the small jet touched down on an abandoned airstrip surrounded by fog. Han Min-jae stepped out first, pistol holstered, eyes sharp. Annabelle followed, heart pounding, the wind tugging at her coat. Somewhere beyond the cliffs, her mother waited, or so they hoped. They moved fast through the forest road. His men spread out, scanning every shadow. The air smelled of rain and metal. Stay behind me, Min-jae said. Annabelle nodded, clutching the small tracking device he'd given her. Every step forward felt like walking toward destiny. The compound came into view, a cold, glass fortress built against the sea, Sumin's private estate. Guards patrolled the perimeter, their weapons glinting in the morning light. Min-jae raised a hand. We go quiet. They slipped inside through the service gate. The halls were white, sterile, humming with tension. Then came a scream, her mother's voice, faint but real. Annabelle broke formation before anyone could stop her. Mama! She ran toward the sound. Min-jae cursed softly, following. They burst into a lab filled with monitors. Her mother sat bound to a chair, eyes wide but alive. And standing behind her, elegant, composed, venomous, was Sumin. Hello, brother, she said in perfect English. And Dr. Obi. You came just as I knew you would. Sumin, Min-jae warned, his gun steady. Step away. She smiled. Always protecting your broken little birds. Annabelle's hand trembled. Let her go. Of course, Sumin said lightly, pressing a button on the control panel. The lights flickered, and the door sealed shut. But freedom cost something. She turned toward Min-jae. Trade yourself, and they walk out alive. Annabelle froze. No, don't. Min-jae's voice was calm. You'd never let them go. True, Sumin said, smirking. But it's still fun to watch you hope. Gunfire erupted before she finished speaking. Min-jae's men breached the side wall, chaos exploding into the room. Sumin fired once, wild, desperate. The bullet missed Annabelle by inches. Min-jae returned fire, hitting the weapon from her hand. She lunged for the detonator on the console. Don't! Annabelle shouted, diving forward. The two women struggled, glass shattering around them. Min-jae pulled Annabelle away just as Sumin pressed the button, only for nothing to happen. His smile was grim. I disabled it hours ago. Sumin stared, defeated, then laughed, a sound hollow and broken. You always win, don't you? No, he said quietly, lowering his gun. This time, I'm just done losing. He turned, taking Annabelle's hand. Let's go home. Outside, the first sunlight broke across the cliffs. Her mother leaned against the rescue car, tears in her eyes. Annabel looked back one last time, at the man who had saved her, destroyed her, and somehow loved her enough to burn the world. Han Min-jae looked at her, wind catching his coat. "You're free now." She smiled softly. "Only if you come with me." And for the first time, he did. Thank you so much for staying with us till the very end of the story. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear the lessons you learned and your thoughts on how we can continue improving to give you the very best. Here at Moonlit Stories, every tale is crafted with passion, care, and dedication. Our mission is simple: to entertain, inspire, and connect us all across cultures and hearts. So, keep the conversation alive in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Till next time, we are Moonlit Stories, bringing you amazing tales that touch hearts and spark imaginations. Stay blessed. Stay inspired. See you in the next story.